Welcome to another episode of Quarter Tones. My name is Mikey Mhenna. With me now in the studio is Fadi Tabbal, musician, producer, the person behind Tunefork Studios. It is an honor to have Fadi in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be behind the microphone.
Yeah.
Which almost never happens. So
yeah, it's the curse of the producer.
The producer, especially that I'm really uncomfortable. So
yeah,
that's good.
Well, it's funny because I live in Beirut and I love music. I'm interested in music. And your name is one of those names that comes up all the time. It's almost like it sort of almost turns into one name, like just like a couple syllables, ma'bad, like Fadi Tabbal, right? Because you seem to be super involved with so many projects, super involved with so many things that are now institutions. So I'm kind of curious to hear the story behind your career. So let's start with 18-year-old Fadi.
Yeah.
What was 18-year-old Fadi doing musically, and was it in Beirut? Where was it?
18-year-old Fadi was in Beirut, actually. I was confused. I got accepted to audio cinema studies and mechanical engineering. And I went and did mechanical engineering.
Bravo.
Yeah, of course, with the wrong decisions at the time. But the whole time was like, because I've been listening to music since I can't remember. I'd like to say 12 years old. Religiously listening to music. So even though I was doing something, my engineering studies, I was like always. Because I used to work after uni. I used to go to work in a specialized music store that doesn't exist anymore. It's called Sedetech.
Okay, I want to ask you about Sedetech.
Yeah. So technically, I was there from I think end of my 17s till I was 22, working in and out of this place, which technically it also broadened all my horizon. And I had also at the same time like a local band that no need to talk about, but I had a band with a few friends and
come on, Fadi. If anyone cares about knowledge production and archiving, it's you. So give me the name.
The name of the band is called April Ash. And it was like we got to record through Sedetech like our album. We had like a few tracks, and they were like a bit mess of prog rock / folk / a bit of everything.
Every Lebanese kid who wants to play in a band has to play prog rock.
It's mostly like this. We were like 5 people, probably not agreeing on anything. So the music shows with like the tracks goes from one way to the other, etc.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell on Dream Theater.
Yeah, it's like it's something. So yeah, like you just like put them together. It's a bit like that. Yeah. And actually, at the time, also when we went to the studio the first time, I can remember clearly that I got so fascinated by what can be done as arrangements and sound manipulation in the studio.
Yeah,
which is also what I used to do by reflex, because I'm just jumping from one idea to another. But I can remember clearly in 97, I think, when OK Computer by Radiohead came out.
Yeah,
I was struck by how sound could be a mode of composition.
Yeah,
because the album is well composed and on a musical level, but a big part of it is how it sounds, and not only the sound effects and everything, how every track had its own like kind of sonic universe. And I started mimicking that while using metal stuff. I used to play bass at the time, which I don't anymore, but I used to use like bows and metal stuff on my just to try to mimic some kind of sound, and I tried to incorporate this in that album, which failed miserably. But it was then, and then seeing what happened in the studio, and and how things can evolve, how things can be manipulated, and also something very, even though the sound person was really extremely nice, I just felt if the person was helping us more on a like more like understanding that we were kids and we're trying to do something, and understanding what we're trying to do, the product would have been better, and the experience for the five of us would be much better. And it was one of those click that told me that I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
And this has been what I was looking for. Try to converse musically and sonically with everybody I work with. And this is kind of the motto of like later on and until now I'm trying to live with. It's just always, it's a language, and music is not one language, it's a million language. So which people won't agree. It's like it's a universal language. It's actually, there's a lot of languages within this broad thing, and understanding what the artist is trying to say, understanding what you're trying to say is a big part, and it's very interesting. And this on that day I was like, I want to do that. And after that, after I finished my mechanical studies, I went to Canada to do my sound studies, and I had this plan to open a studio with Steaditech, which is one of the partners, and another partner, and this is what we did. And then obviously over time it's completely changed. It changed from being just a studio to a collective, which now I introduced the Tunefork as a collective, not a place where people come just to record or to be produced or everything.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like I'm imagining you. Do you remember the movie? I'm sure you know this movie, High Fidelity.
Of course.
You're like John Cusack in High Fidelity.
Well, I hope I'm just a bit nicer.
Sorting your records and trying to make sense of your personality.
Actually, when we used to be in Steaditech, we had this thing where everybody wanted to be John Cusack.
Of course, of course.
And High Fidelity, but it's kind of a bit like that.
Yeah. When did you first get into a musical project that you were really proud of? The first one that you said, "Oh my God, I think we're doing stuff that I'm excited to share with people," and it felt like it was something meaningful to you.
Well, I won't lie. The first thing that we did is something that we were proud of at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I was conscious as being this thing where I'm talking about this dialogue thing, I think the first thing was in 2000. I would say 7 maybe. It was having Yumna Saba in the studio the first time, and having this beginning of we still work together. It's been like since then. It was completely different at the time, but it was this beginning of this conversation that was acknowledged by both parties, the musician and the producer, and it evolved so much. And this is one of my favorite stories because I started with her kind of trying to produce, trying to change, trying to talk about how to modulate what she's trying to say, to the point where, I don't know if you heard her latest album is breathtaking.
Yeah.
And now she's on a pretty good label called Touch. It's one of those cult labels in the UK, and she's touring a lot. But it started, and it's one of my favorite stories to tell, because when we started, it was really different, but there was the concept of conversation started there. So even when I listen back to the first albums were pretty simple, let's say, I'm still proud of it.
Amazing. I love Yumna. Yumna has been on the series, and I think her work is breathtaking. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the first project that I ever knew that was associated with you, which is Scrambled Eggs.
Yeah.
So I want to play a little bit from that project. Okay. When you're listening to this project from Scrambled Eggs, this is the first time I had ever heard the term Tunefork Studios, right? I'm curious, A, how you feel listening to this music back. Do you feel like you're like, oh, that was very early in my days. I had no idea what I'm doing, and I'm making a million mistakes, or are you like, yeah, that's amazing? And
well, to be honest, actually, Scrambled Eggs is one of the major turning point also, which I didn't talk about starting, because when I was in school, I used to go after school sometimes and watch the guys play in like local bars, and I was fascinated.
Yeah,
I was fascinated by these people doing like rock, but using a lot of sonic aspect for doing doing what supposedly we knew back then as rock, yeah. And it went well with what I was thinking about, the sonic aspect of making music. And actually, listening to Scrambled Eggs and Soap Kills while me being in school is one of the reason where it's actually the main reason why I wanted to finish my studies in Canada and come back to Lebanon to work on sound in Lebanon. Not actually having like, it was the incentive to say, it was like very clear, if a couple of bands like that exist in Lebanon, there'll be a million other, because and that was, and they're breathtaking, and I still love those two projects. Like so usually when I listen to something like old that I did, I get cringe with a lot of mistakes that we did in the studio, or I wish we did this differently. Oh, I wish I had those better microphones at the time, or everything. But listening to Scrambled Eggs, it just makes me just like very emotional, but because it's so important on a personal level, and knowing the guys, people that were like my idols in school became my friends, and to the point that me and Sherbil now are like, we did like a million project together, and he's like one of my main collaborators in all my musical projects. So yeah, listening to Scrambled Eggs, I don't really have this normal thing when I feel about the like re-questioning myself, because I do that every second of the day. But it gets emotional about, I wish we had more time to do more stuff with the band.
Right before we started, I told you that I wanted to use this opportunity to sort of map out the history of independent music that is related to Beirut, whether it's coming out of it, whether the musicians call this place home, or whatever. So maybe there's a good time. Maybe Scrambled Eggs is a good way to get into that conversation. So let's go back to those early 2000s. Yeah. So who was in the scene? Like, help map out what you think the quote unquote independent music scene was like in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s, I can.
Or if you want to start from the 90s, maybe that's a better place.
It's actually end of 90s, early 2000. I think like the major players at the time were Scrambled Eggs, Soap Kills, Zaid and Yasmin, and there was like Reis Bek, and there was after that Kita Beirut, and there was like a band called Devython, and these were like those major players that you would hear about, even though you're like if you're like slightly interested in what's happening locally, and especially in the sense of original composition, not like of course there's a lot of cover bands and all that, but I'm talking about people trying to create a certain identity to belonging in Beirut. And these, and especially like what I always go back to the three, which is Reis Beg, meaning in Accessair, Soap Kills, and Scrambled Eggs, are for me like the first thing I heard about local music at the time. Is it the only thing? No. With time, we, like I said, with a lot of research and back and forth and looking for archives and everything, you found out that they're not the only ones, but they were the more exposed one, let's say, for and So yeah, this is what it was, and it covered a bit everywhere. So a bit of like modern Oriental with electronica, rock with like post-punk and deconstructed music, and hip hop and R&B, a bit like the whole spectrum.
The array of late 90s music.
Late 90s music, exactly.
Yeah.
And working at Sidetech, like I said, there was like a sister label, which is technically the same thing as Sidetech, which called Incognito. They used to gather a lot of artists and release like compilations. And the early 2000s, there was a compilation with a lot of those artists. So it's I think it's called Incognito. Yeah. Of course, there was Blend, which it was the second name of Leviathan. There was Scrambled Eggs, Soap Girls were on it, and there was a lot of other bands. Some of them changed to something else. Some of them don't exist anymore. But it's a very important product, or like let's say stamp in time.
Yeah.
Especially everybody also performed live.
Can we talk about the venues as well? Because
the venues.
Like
so
live music needs
venues. So
venues.
We always had problem with venues, of course, which makes sense. But at the time, other than like, I think the main venues, if I'm not mistaken, was Kalinka, which was in the beginning of Hamra, next to what? TLS, I think that was TLS. So there was like a Spinneys or something like that. It was underground. There was also Nova.
Yeah.
Which used to be in Sindelfield. Now it's somewhere completely different in Bremena, I think, or somewhere like that. Mansouriya, yeah, of course. Quadrangle, which was still there. And these were the main ones, except for like the makeshift ones in small pubs or on the street or anything. And there was also a big venue that didn't last for long, but was beautiful. It's called Strange Fruit. That was in Starco.
Yeah, of course.
And this is where we did the release of that compilation. It was really a gorgeous place.
I forgot about Strange Fruit. Wow.
Strange Fruit was like, I think it became music hall.
It became music hall. The downstairs.
Yeah, downstairs.
Yeah,
but it was more targeted to like alternative music, not less of a like show and cabaret. It was more like trying to do a venue for what we wanted. Yeah.
I want to keep on going, but I actually want to ask you this question, because maybe you're one of the people who's best suited to answer it. Why aren't there better music venues for local excellent music? Is it a problem with the patrons? We don't have a culture of going to see live music? Does it doesn't make economic sense? Why?
I think it just doesn't make any economic sense. Because there's not enough people to watch this.
Just the place is too small? Is that it?
The place is too small, and I think we still have a problem with exporting through the country what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
There's a discrepancy of what's happening in Beirut and what's happening outside Beirut, and even within Beirut also. There's a lack of knowledge being transferred all over. And economically doesn't really make sense. So let's say we have let's throw like a very non-specific figure. But let's say there's like 2,000 people watching like alternative music.
Yeah.
And you have like 3 venues, and you have 3 concerts per week, and then you divide this by everybody. So technically you get like 30 to 40 people by each place. So I don't think it's if we don't have like a patron who is like opening this just to make it work like very like generously. I don't think we can have a venue that is between 100 and 200 people.
Okay, but the reason why I want to dig into that, because Beirut is in an island.
Yeah,
we're in a broader region, and if we look at places like Cairo or Dubai, let's just use those two.
Let's use Cairo.
Okay, but either of those, or even let's use. I want to use those two because they're very different places. And they both have big populations.
Yeah.
Why isn't there more really excellent, or maybe there is, but why isn't there more really excellent independent music coming out of those places with amazing live venues that are creating an industry?
Like from Egypt and Dubai. I think Egypt has a lot of great artists coming out.
Okay, tell us about them.
Yeah, they have, especially, it's been like a few years. There's been a nice birth of contemporary and avant-garde Oriental artists, mixing old and traditional music with modern techniques or modern composition or deconstruction, and I can just throw two of my favorite artists actually at the moment, which is Nada Shazli and Maurice Luca, which they have both insane albums out, and seeing them live is actually insanely good also. And
they have the venues and they have the entire...
But, they both left Cairo also to have a...
This is
but playing Cairo, I played once or twice in Cairo, I can't remember. It's always full.
Yeah.
There's so many people, it's always full.
Okay.
Yeah, it's insane. People are there's it's always full. I don't know if there's a lot of places. The only one I can pinpoint is Cairo Jazz Club. Yeah. So, but I guess they have the same problem here.
Yeah.
Within just we maybe from this vintage point we see that there's more people, but I think it's just proportional to the population of the area.
Yeah.
The other second problem is so usually, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you're a band from, I don't know, Dortmund or somewhere. You can just go in a van and travel through Europe and do a concert here and there, and trying to make yourself known a bit easier. Here, we can't do that.
Yeah, everything's closed.
And trying to you travel to Cairo, you play in jazz club, that's your maximum you can do, and traveling to Dubai is almost impossible, especially with their new laws of getting artists from outside. And you play in Jordan, maybe you can get a couple of small pubs.
Yeah. So you have to basically play on the internet. You have to
play on the internet, and this becomes another problem, which is how to export yourself to Western culture at the same time without selling yourself to them, which means how do not modulate what they want to hear about you. Yeah. And this is one of the major discussions and problems and conversations and topics that we have with all bands that I work with.
So yeah. I want to jump into that conversation.
Yeah.
And I come to you, right?
Yeah.
I have ideas, right?
Yeah.
I play guitar, I play synth at home, I know how to make some beats, I have artistic voice. I'm born and raised in Trablus. And I come to you, I'm like, Fadi, I have some ideas, but I want to make it. I want this to be my the thing that pays my rent. I want this to be my livelihood. And so I'm looking at a playbook, and that playbook is Instagram Reels and TikTok, trending sounds, and I want to get people in Bratislava and Boston and Bogota to be into me. So khalas, I'm gonna do stuff that sounds good. I'm gonna follow the K-pop model.
Yeah.
What do you say to that person?
I say you can do whatever you want, but if we're coming and trying to work together, even if you want to, important for me is, are you doing the music for other people or for you and other people? That's most important. You can do it for you, and keep in mind other people. But once you start doing it for, once you start presenting what people expect you to release, I think it's a fail. It starts as a fail, and and it happens so many times. And you know that you can hear somebody who's not convinced or just trying to follow a certain model, to be very blunt, how the West sees a band coming from or an artist coming from this region. And it's ridiculous because ridiculous on so many levels. One of them is very simply is the fact that it's much more complex than everything is much more complex than zeros and ones. Just yes or no. Oh, he doesn't sing in Arabic. Oh, he doesn't have Aoud. Or those simple facts are ridiculous. You just need to do what you believe in, and what language you are comfortable. Language, I'm not talking about the language, but the musical language you're comfortable with. So this becomes a sort of a choice the artist wants to make. From our side and my side, what we try to do is, I always say, I try to help the artist get the best version of what he's trying to say. So to answer this very clearly, I unfortunately can never tell the band that they cannot make it or anything.
Yeah.
So this comes first. Usually when a new person or new artist comes over, first discussion is, do you know what happened in Lebanon before you? Because a lot of bands come and they're like, we're the first punk band. No, you're not. Because it's not only their fault for lack of interest. It's also the lack of archiving that exists, what's happening. So
celebrating.
Yeah, exactly. So first thing first is, do we know what happened before? Let's understand what people did before. Let's understand that you're part of a community. You're not an island within an island. You are a person within a community that is maybe an island, but you're not alone in this. And it's important to all keep, this is another major thing that we talk about. We're all somehow connected in the same community. And it's important. Once you decide that you're not, I think it's really, it's really not good for either the scene or yourself. Second thing is, I can help within a certain scope of things. We can talk about them later on, which is, what can I do? How we can help having the most coverage within our own network.
Yeah.
And with time, of course, the network got bigger. Meaning, it's not longer in Beirut. It's also in different areas of Lebanon, and also we have a few partners in Europe and in the United States and in Asia. With time, this is what we built. So we built this bigger understanding of what the Lebanese music scene is. So what you can do is just put them in touch of this slightly larger network. This of course, there's no guarantee of anything, because a lot of this bigger network, of course, again, they're waiting for something specific sometimes, and you can't modulate what people would want. You just need to be as convincing of what you're doing, and this is not that's not enough. Also, it's not enough. It's not enough. There's like everything. There's luck in it, and there's circumstances, and there's what's trending at the moment. And this, even the alternative scene, there's trends. It's not So, but again, we can following a trend or following a certain sound is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that, of course not. You should be aware of what's happening in the world. If you're doing like a electro clash album now, it's outdated. So it's going to be harder for you to convince other people to be excited about it. For example. But at the same time, what's the right limit of doing what you like and not selling yourself? At the same time, keeping a big part is what is a Lebanese identity. And the Lebanese identity is a mess. If you want to talk about it, it's a mess of potpourri of a million things at the same time. So you limiting yourself as something specific is also wrong. And I think like I say to anybody like questioning, for example, some of my projects, like for example with Bunny Tyler's, or a project I produced like postcards or stuff like that, and like, why didn't they sing in Arabic? And I'm like, and you're like, so you don't talk about anything from the region, and you're like, no, we do. Everything that comes out from this region is related to the religion, either musically, lyrically, sonically. It doesn't need to be just the language or the instrumentation. These bands are a part of the Beirut identity. Yeah. Is it the larger one? Maybe not. Of course not. But it exists. Yeah. It exists. So this dialogue about trying to do something that is not. I don't think it exists. Yeah. 100%. Except those some of those bands where like they want to write stuff that sounds like something else, even lyrically, and this is the problem when I say please just say something. You need to understand that you're saying something and people would be convinced about it. If you do like a musical piece, like so only instrumental, if you don't have a certain let's say storytelling between you and yourself, you don't need to be very literal. But if you wrote something instrumental, like a 10-minute like ambient track, but you have a certain storytelling that you're saying to yourself while doing it, it will show. People will feel it. There's a big difference between doing like a pad, not moving, thinking that sounds like something very minimal. It's not the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. No, if you can't go on a journey in your music, how can you expect anyone else? Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I want to get back to the journey that we were on before, which is we did late 90s. I want to go forward and then I want to go backwards to these all these mysterious bands that people should know about. So after the early 90s, we enter into the internet age, fully into the internet age. Yeah. YouTube get launched in 2006. So tell us what happens after the late 90s. I think if I want to pinpoint the first alternative band that used the internet in their advantage is Mashroua Al-Ila. Yeah. I can remember very clearly using Facebook as a mode of communication with the crowd, with the audience, and using those abstract way of presenting Mashroua Al-Ila as an entity, talking with everything, and then talking to the rest of the crowd, and also presenting their very, very strong social and political statements, not only through the music or through what is being said during the concert, but also through the internet. Yeah. And I think this worked so much. I can't pinpoint any other band in alternative music in Lebanon that got so big. Yeah. Okay, a lot of stuff plays a factor, of course. How they use the internet, having a uber charismatic frontman, having including marginalized people usually, and thinking probably other people thinking that they're a very minority, which they're not. There's a lot of, and I should say, including them not as a gimmick at all. Exactly. Yeah, which is a mistake some people think that they can pull off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also presenting very, very, very solid live shows. Yeah. And also, again, it's the only band that also were able to have this modern approach to music and having the language, which the local language, Arabic, but finally musically it's really very, very westernized. But it spoke to a lot of people. I think Swapkills reached somewhere there before that, but this got so huge. They were huge in Egypt. They were huge in Jordan. They were huge in the whole regional places where they could play until they couldn't anymore because of a lot of circumstances, unfortunate ones. And they were big also in the expat community around the world. For sure. And I think really that internet played a big role also.
Yeah. Who were their contemporaries? Let's talk about some of the others at that time.
At the time, okay, of course, there was still the Scrambled Eggs were still there. Zaid had a million other projects at the same time. I think Zaid and the Wigs were at the same time. Locally, we're talking locally. There was like a Fadi Tabbal were at the time.
For sure.
There was my band with Saj, which was the Incompetence at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was Yumna at the time. There was Adonis also, which they took a different turn completely. But at the beginning, they were more into that alternative aspect of things. There was Munma, especially his album, and there was Ras. There was.
I will pull up your website because
your website has
your
everything.
Website is an amazing list of these projects.
What else? There was what else? Complete blank for some reason. Of course, there was the whole more abstract musicians from the quote-unquote experimental scene, from Mazen Kerbesh, Sharif Sahnawi, Raed Yassin. There was also a lot of electronic music. Also, Sani Musa, who used to be Radio KVM, Okidoki, who was usually they used to be a duet. It was like this drone metal from Trablus, Osman Arabi. There was Lazy Long, which is more straightforward alternative. I think around that time these Hokil Brucey a bit later. Yeah, I'm just a bit later. These are just before the Hokil Bruce Lee, Wanton Bishop postcards and all the second wave, which is technically the richest in terms of interest and.
So let's move into that second wave for a second. What distinguishes or where does the first wave stop and the second wave start? Because like the Mashroua Layla period was kind of this like early internet, right?
Yeah, early internet, and it continued to. We're talking like 2010s or something, even a bit later on. 2012, let's say. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. 12. Let's listen. I can know from my 12, 13, 14. Like it's the second waves. I don't. Or fifth waves, depending where we start the waves. But it started, and I think it got pushed with a lot of money that was injected.
Sure. From where?
Red Bull, mostly.
Red Bull.
Red Bull had this huge thing where they used to put a lot of money on bands for some reason. I still don't understand why. But
what an unlikely character. So in this phase, Red Bull like
injected
reshapes the alternative music scene.
And they like pushed a lot of bands, mostly the Wanton Bishop and also Kill Bruce Lee, which they did. If you can remember, there was this battle of the bands, kind of Kill Bruce Lee with Mashroua Layla at the Forum.
Yeah,
and it was it's a Red Bull event also. It used to be a Red Bull
How
event.
Interesting.
Yeah. And also around that time, very local promoters got bigger and more like Beirut Jam Session.
Yeah.
So they used the internet to do those
Anthony Saman. Yeah.
Anthony Saman did this. Used the internet to do what they used to do outside, which like those sessions. Probably is the first waves of those sessions. Now there's a plenty version of the Beirut Jam Sessions and they had this nice thing where they got like artists from outside and do like a collaboration sessions and everything. Yeah. And you had those big festivals like but local festivals like Wicker Park and then Oakenfest and they used to get like thousands of people in them, which was a big number. And there's a Beirut Open Stage, which also did a lot of battle of the band, meaning like getting a lot of people that wanted to be presented, and a lot of great artists came from Beirut Open Stage. To name a few, that's still doing music. They're still doing music, Postcards and Mesa.
Yeah,
this is how they started being, and they're still probably Actually, if I'm gonna recall well, I think Postcards is the only band that is still banned for 10 years, not changing to different project, but a long-lasting band.
How cool!
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Mesa also started there, and of course she changed from Safar to her solo outlet, which is a bit more different and less pop music. So yeah, there was this whole thing that happened around that time, and then suddenly money got less and less and less and less, and I think there was no, I think all those people that injected money just so that there's no actual
return,
financial return.
There's financial return. Yeah.
There was a return, financial return. But at the same time, I want to mention something that happened at the time, which these are stuff that I think the Red Bull thing and this big push in those bands alienated a big part of the musical scene, especially the non-Occidental one in the genre. I mean,
yeah.
And they were focusing on really those bands that sounds really European/American.
Yeah.
And this whole era is as if this genre overshadowed everything that happened after that.
Yeah.
Overshadowed the other ones, which are this creates a lot of discrepancies between genres and people and everything. Of course, there's a lot of bad blood and just like misunderstanding what's happening, and people saying, it creates problems when you alienate a big part of the population.
I have a question for you. Okay. To disassociate, I'm going to use an American context for my question, and then I want to superimpose it on Lebanon, because I think it does superimpose quite nicely. But to disarm you, I want to use an American context. So, do you remember Soulja Boy, the hip-hop producer?
Yeah.
Okay. When Soulja Boy broke onto the scene in the States, he was known as kind of a ringtone rapper. Okay? Very sha'bi, right? Like music that people actually listen to in barbershops and 7th grade classrooms and in the locker room at football, before the game. Not like overly intellectual music, right? Music for the masses.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have like very, experimental type stuff. This doesn't always, but sometimes correlates to economic differences, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like the live music scene here, and it sort of correlates to this Red Bull thing. The live music scene doesn't always seem to make music للشعب, right?
Yeah.
And kind of looks down on, I feel like they kind of look down, not they, I'll include myself, naturally can look down on the music that is exploding out of buses that are like zooming down the street, right?
All right.
Do we have a pop music problem? Are we making music for everyone, or are we?
Okay, so this is very complicated as a question, and it changes with time in our timeline.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course there's a making like brainy and brainy. I mean, just like cerebral music.
Cerebral, yeah.
Of course, comes from a certain social class. Of course, having more time to think about, not.
And the luxury to produce it.
And the luxury to be exposed to it at the beginning.
Yeah.
To start with, which is why I'm gonna link a lot of stuff, and probably it's gonna be hopefully it's gonna get lost. So I think starting at the beginning of those waves, I'm telling you, I'm thinking these people. Yeah, I cannot think. Yeah, they used to look down. I would say.
Yeah.
I would say yes. But I think also at the same time things change with time, with the revolution and like those our local people understanding that we are not part of the Occidental thinking or belonging, which people very lately are trying to understand this. Things started to change. And before that also, another thing, unfortunately, it plays on two things at the same time. One, the understanding that you have an identity, that the conversation, like I go back to the conversation. When there's a lack of conversation, there's a problem all the time. I don't have any problem with anybody doing anything, but the important thing every time I work with somebody is to understand what's happening around you.
Yeah.
You are part of this landscape.
Yeah.
You are not better than the landscape. You have something to say within the landscape. It's valid, but not more valid than anybody else.
Yeah.
This is one of the main things we talk about. Now, going back to this, there's a two-edged sword that happened here. With time, people understood the importance of understanding your a part of where you come from. But the bad part happening here is some people from like those people that used to look down on those things are now using this, because this is actually what the Occidental people want to find in the music. So again, it goes back into using the Shabi thing for
as a gimmick.
As a gimmick, and it becomes weird that you're appropriating something that technically you belong to, but you behave with it as an appropriation.
Yeah, like for many years, it's like, don't put on the tarbouch because you don't want to be, you want to fit into the West, and now the West tells you to put on the tarbouch, and you're like,
and now you put tarbouch and saying that, and the problem comes when you put the guy who didn't used to put the tarbouch, he mocks the people that are not putting, he becomes like self-righteous about what's happening.
Yeah,
and this happens a lot, of course, but you can't control this. This is like how I'm gonna seize the moment.
Yeah.
But generally, things are more acceptant between this different genre. And I know that a lot of growing up, and I know like in Lebanon, unfortunately, people tend to put you in categories, even if you don't want it. But it's like that.
Yeah.
We like categories, and I know that a lot of people think that no longer as before, but they always thought, he's more into Tunefork is more working with the Occidental thing, and which is never true at all.
Yeah.
At all, to the point that people did not know that since day one I used to record a lot of Takhat Shar'i and a lot of classical Oriental music and a lot of jazz, and you can check the website.
Yeah.
They existed since day one, so people tend to log. But the more we had influence, the more a word, and the more the conversation, the more I started like knowing people from different genres, the more I'm trying to reconcile those things, and also this is what happened with Irtijal.
Yeah.
For example, this year, Irtijal now is a big mixture of Oriental classical mixed with contemporary classical mixed with abstract music mixed with electronica. It's where it started and where it ended is completely different. Some people can't see it, but it's actually very different. It started a bit, maybe like in somewhere with a bit we're doing something that nobody. But at the same time, introducing this to the mass crowd is interesting, and they were never. At the beginning, maybe I wasn't there at the beginning, but maybe it was a bit like, you can't understand what we're doing. We're doing all this kind of thing. But with time, by doing the tickets very cheap or free most of the time, and by including a lot of artists from here and there, everything, it's a good thing, because people can understand different ways to do music. It doesn't mean you need to like those abstract stuff, but it helps. It helps understanding the importance of sound. And it's nice to mix all those together, and it's not, and like we just finished last week, and it's a big crowd for this kind of music, and understanding that actually what we're trying to do is actually link everybody, not the other way around. Yeah, and this is what with Tunefork also we try to do. This is why there's a thing when Tunefork, it's like it's open for everybody to call and ask for advices and talk about anything. This is why I'm telling you it's more like a collective, where this is it's an open space for everybody to meet and understand each other.
Yeah. To produce authentic music.
And to talk, not only produce. A lot of stuff that not produced in Tunefork, but somehow we're linked to talking about like calling us, talking about how you can help, who do you know in this kind of drummer who knows this kind of things, etc. It became a kind of a hub where it's a very, very in and out, very, very, very open discussion happening around it.
I want to come back to Interlude, which is celebrating its 24th anniversary. But before this, we were talking about another project that you're working on to go backwards and to not only fill in some of the gaps time-wise, but also this like music that was coming out of scenes that we don't typically, don't get enough light on them. So let's go backwards. So pre-90s into the sort of 80s and 70s during the war. What other music was coming out of there that people can check out, can't check out?
Well, that's hard to keep up. This comes for the lack of archiving. But there were, people with time understood, for example, there's a band in the 60s or 70s called the Cedars in Lebanon. People did not know that there was a lot of band doing like psychedelic.
Who are the Cedars? Tell us about it.
It's a psychedelic / surf rock. That was more in the line of the Beach Boys and the Kinks and the Beatles, and understanding that there was always somebody doing something quote unquote modern. Of course, there's a lot of all the Rahbani things, project from Feiruz to their own composition to Ziad, even there was a huge load of things happening at the time. Of course, with the name and everything, a big part of got lost in
the war
good. But every time we talk about, like you talk to somebody tells you, no, I used to have a band in the 80s and we used to have like a glam rock like David Bowie, and it was like, oh yeah, no, these are stuff that completely erased, like say completely erased. And I don't know how. Still finding out if I can. There's a lot of stuff that you can't find at all. Sometimes you can find like demos and everything, but it's sad to see that we can't. Until now I can't like have a clearer, let's say, map of what's happening, non-popular, because at the time Rahbanis were popular.
Yeah.
Compared to what's happening now, probably now they can be called alternative, but then at the time this is what's popular. But I think the position of Lebanon is important to talk about. This is an island that it's a potpourri of all English and French and Egyptians and Jordanians and Palestinians and. This was the thing that everybody was, and so it's normal to be so eclectic.
And the most important community that you didn't mention is the Armenians.
And the Armenians, of course.
Every single project has amazing Armenian Lebanese.
Yeah, true. I didn't mention a lot of stuff also, like a huge metal scene that we didn't talk about.
I want to ask you about metal actually. Because. I joked about this. Every Lebanese kid who wants to be in a band always plays prog rock, but really what they always play is metal. And I remember hearing that at some point metal was banned.
Yeah, it was. When I used to work in Sedatak, we used to hide all the metal albums in a drawer, and we used to let just people we know look at them just because we were afraid of getting caught, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, censorship is not something new in Lebanon.
But
it was directed to this metal thing because there was those Abedin Shitan kind of this whole thing that happened. I think like end of 90s, early 2000 with Satanist and everything, and mostly the Christian community getting afraid of that and pushing to shut down things. And it's funny because I don't think you can meet nicer people than
metalheads. Yeah.
Metalheads. It's always the joke. Metalheads are the nicest people, and pop stars are awful.
Yeah.
Even though the music is
exactly. One is bubblegum and the other one is metal straps.
Yeah, but that's why it was a bit harsh at time, and they had a lot of they were really tracked down by the government at the time.
It's crazy.
A lot of people, friends that spent a few days in the prison just for going to a concert or wearing black eye mascara or just looking a bit dark, let's say. Well, this is part of a huge different topic of censorship, which happened to almost everybody in different ways. But yeah, I think metal usually is always linked to countries in what do they call it? They say third world countries or disconnected countries from the world, like a Scandinavian country, and it's always
South America.
Yeah, South America a lot. And with time, metal and abstract / quote unquote experimental music is also linked to this. There's a huge experimental scene in Argentina and Mexico, and it's part of this deconstructing what's supposed to be normal.
Yeah,
metal through anger and abstract music through actually deconstructing what we tend to see as normal.
Okay, Fadi, before we end, tell us where people can find out information about Tunefork, about Irtijal, and where people can find out about you as well.
All right. All Tunefork's ventures in any kind of project, from albums to installations to films that we do, is on the website, tuneforkstudios.com. And my personal project can be found on my own website, faditabbal.com. And other than that, it's pretty hard because I talked about archiving and stuff like that, but we're trying to make more effort to be online, because I'm not from that category of people who know how to use social media a lot. Yeah. But now since a few years, the team is actually composed of 5 people, and this is why the website is now very clear. It used to be.
Yeah.
This is why we're on Instagram. It's very clear. Every time we do anything, it's on Instagram, so we're making more effort to be also clear and visible to the public.
Amazing.
And just want to say something is anybody that feels again that has something he wants to share musically, or want to talk about anything, or they want to discuss, or want to listen to something. Everybody knows, but I'm going to say it again. Tunefork is a door open for everybody.
Cool. Last thing before I close, I definitely want you to list, if you could take 10 albums with you, right? 10 projects, 10 albums to a desert island. What are those?
From the ones we did?
Or just music coming from the region.
Okay, so 10. All right, so
or 5 to 10.
I don't want to make anybody mad or sad.
I mean, okay. It can be projects from the 60s or 50s or whenever.
I'm going to name projects people probably should listen to, which is Nada Shazli's first album, which it's one of my landmark album. Yumna Saba's last album. I think Bunny Tyler's is something I'm very proud of. I would say Postcards After the Fire is a great album that has to do with what happened during the explosion and in a very subtle and emotional way. Mesa Marja is a beautiful album that I recommend everybody to listen to. Kinematique Murur Kiram is probably my favorite post-rock album, even though I worked on it, was coming from the region. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's a bit understated appreciated by everybody. Even the people that love Kinematique, they skip this album, which I think is great. What else? Autism by the Asil Ensemble is a great record, beautiful record. What else? Snakeskin is what I'm proud of now. This is the project I'm focusing on, is my duet with Julia Sabra from Postcard, and she's also the one responsible for our social media and everything. At last, she's our boss now in Tunefork. What else? There's a lot of stuff. I love Sariz Musa's Imbalance is a gorgeous electronic record. A landmark album that I love is Ras and Moonma. I know it's been a while. Unveiling the Hidden. It's a great starting point of a lot of abstract and electronic infused R&B and hip hop in the country. What else? So many stuff, really. From the new project, I think Sanam is a very nice project that's getting somewhere interesting in this mixture of Oriental and contemporary music. I probably forgot a shitload of stuff. I don't know. Yeah, but
that's good.
These are 10 so far, I guess.
Okay.
Probably I forgot a lot of stuff that I love. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Fadi, thanks so much. Thanks for joining. Check out these albums. We'll put an article up on Deftud with a bunch of these stuff and maybe more if you think about it afterwards. Fadi, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Cool.
Thank you.